Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Bobby Valentine Sports Show. I'm your host, Frank Rampin. Week 8 in the books, a lot of crazy finishes, some surprising teams that won, some surprising teams that lost. The New York Jets are an utter tragedy. There was a miracle in the DMV, so let's dive right into this week's weekly recap, starting off with our stat of the week like normal. So this Sunday, and every year, the final Sunday of the month of October is National Tight End Day. So it's not an actual day, it's a fluctuating holiday, kind of like the Thanksgiving holiday, how it's always the fourth Thursday in Thanksgiving. National Tight Ends Day is the fourth Sunday in October. So tight ends on National Tight Ends Day had a historic ball game, or historic afternoon. All of them had unbelievable days. Tight ends in week 8, they had 183 receptions, over 2,000 receiving yards combined, 2,040 yards, and 17 touchdowns combined over the weekend. All of those are the most in a single week this season, and 183 receptions in 1 week for tight ends is an NFL record for tight end receptions on a single day. Unbelievable. So from that to the play of the week, actually got 2 of them for you this week, both of them coming from the same game. So let's pick things up early in the ball game. In Detroit, Lions versus Titans. First play of the drive for Detroit on their own 30-yard line. Inside handoff to Jahmyr Gibbs. He finds a crease, and there's that Alabama speed. Turns on the Jets, and nobody's got a chance. Oh my goodness, Jahmyr Gibbs is so fast. You saw that burst in Alabama. When I was watching him play in college, I was like, wow, this guy's going to make people look bad on defense. He just cut that one up. Unbelievable. I don't think I've ever seen a running back hit a hole harder than I saw than that right there. That was ridiculous to watch. He is so unbelievably fast. And man, Sonic and Knuckles, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, that duo in the backfield for Detroit is unstoppable almost. It's unbelievable. They've played 19 career games together, both of them active in the same game. Montgomery has 19 touchdowns in those 19 games, and Jahmyr Gibbs has 16. Unbelievable production from both running backs playing in the same system. Very impressive from Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for Detroit. So let's move ahead now. Later in this Detroit-Tennessee game, this time Detroit's punting. Early in the third quarter here, Detroit with a handed lead, 35-14. Nice punt from the Tennessee punter, back to the 10-yard line, caught by Khalif Raymond. Makes the first 2 guys miss, got a seam up the middle, and he breaks right through it, and he's off to the races. Untouched on a 90-yard punt return touchdown. The Lions had all the stops working in this game. Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, the punt return team, Khalif Raymond had 2 unbelievable returns, one for a touchdown. They had a long kick return for a touchdown. Jared Goff threw for 78 yards, less than 100 yards, and they put up 52 points. Unbelievable. So the Lions rolling in Detroit. That's our play of the week. 2 plays of the week come from Detroit. Now let's go to the game of the week. And man, if you watch NFL football this weekend, you know where I'm going with this. Commanders versus Bears. The first time ever Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams, the number 1 and number 2 overall picks in last year's NFL draft, face off against each other in Washington, in D.C. Very, very anticipated matchup. Was actually flexed from the 1 o'clock slate to the 4:30 slate so that more eyeballs can count on it. But through 3 quarters here, really, basically through 3 quarters, a defensive struggle. Washington was moving the ball, dominating the game, the yards, the possession, all that good stuff. But every time Washington got in the red zone, they were unable to capitalize with a touchdown. They were forced to kick 4 field goals within the red zone. So late here in the third quarter, Washington with a 12-0 lead, Austin Seibert 4 made field goals. So here we go. 2nd and 7, just 55 seconds left in the third quarter. Like I said, 12-0 Washington. Hand off to DeAndre Swift to the left side. Holds outside, cuts back in, back towards the sideline, and he's got the sideline. Down there he goes. 50-yard touchdown for DeAndre Swift to get the Bears off the deck, right back into this ball game. It is now a 5-point game. What a run from DeAndre Swift. Picks the Bears off the ground, brings them back from the dead. Big block down the field from their left tackle, number 72, not sure the name there. Actually ended up taking out 2 guys there because the second defender had to jump over him. Clears the lanes for DeAndre Swift. He takes it over 50 yards to the house. So 12-7, like I said. So now let's jump ahead. Still 12-7. Washington did miss a field goal during this time. But here we go. Bears driving. inside the red zone for the Commanders. 3rd and goal from inside the 5. They try to hand it to the backup lineman, Doug Kramer, and he loses the football. 3rd and goal from the 1. They hand it to the backup center, and he loses the ball. Washington recovers it. They take it all the way back to the house, but they are ruled down. But massive swing of events. Chicago going in to tie the game. No more. Gives it right back to Washington. Unbelievable. What a wild call that was. And look at this. The lineman for Kramer, see this replay here, he never even had the ball. Caleb Williams puts it into his chest, and it just bounces right out into the D-line. He tries to dive in there to get it, but it's caught or picked up by the Washington Commanders defense, and that is a catastrophe for Matt Eberflus and the Bears. But luckily enough, the Commanders were unable to get a first down after getting that ball at their own 1-yard line. So the Bears get a chance with just under 5 minutes left to go in this ball game. Or excuse me, just under 4 minutes left to go in this ball game. 3rd and 10 now from their own 38-yard line. Williams, looking left, finds Rome Odunze, and he's got the first down into Commanders territory. Big play from the 2 rookies, keeping this drive alive and keeping this game alive for Chicago. A couple plays later, Williams rushed in the pocket, escaping, throws back across the middle of the field, and it's caught by Keenan Allen. Inside the 20-yard line, red zone opportunity for the Bears, down by 5, 1:20 left to go. And after a Caleb Williams run to make it 4th and 3, the Bears are down to their last chance. 4th and 3 inside the 15-yard line with 36 seconds left to go. Caleb Williams looks to the right side of the end zone for Keenan Allen, and it's incomplete, but a flag is down. Flag, pass interference in the end zone, ball's placed at the 1-yard line, and the Bears have a shot. So 2nd and goal, Williams under center from the 1. This time not to a backup lineman, this time to Roschon Johnson, and he powers his way in for the score. Chicago goes on top, 13-12, and they're going to go for 2 to try to make it a field goal game. Pitch to Cole Kmet, and he's in. So touchdown and a 2-point conversion successful for Chicago. They're up by 3 with 25 seconds left in this ball game. 25 seconds left. 3-point ball game. So, after the first play of this drive goes to Zach Ertz from Jaden Daniels, there's only 6 seconds left in the ball game. Commanders still on their own 35-yard line, unable to throw a Hail Mary. So, with the Bears defense in prevent, already looking for the Hail Mary, Daniels hits Terry McLaurin on a quick out to set up the play. 48-yard line, Jaden Daniels takes a snap. Here we go. Hail Mary opportunity. He's got all day to throw. Originally flushed out right, works his way back left. Not sure what the spy for Chicago is doing. Absolutely nothing. Daniels heaves it to the end zone. Tipped and right into the hands of Noah Brown. Unbelievable ending to this one. 2 touchdowns scored in the final 30 seconds of the game. The first game this century where there were 2 touchdowns by each team in the final 30 seconds of the game. The Commanders had a 3.6 chance to win this game prior to the Hail Mary. On the Hail Mary, Jaden Daniels ran 40.7 yards in the backfield before even throwing the ball, the most yards before passing touchdown in the last 5 seasons. The ball traveled 65.9 yards in the air, the 3rd farthest passing touchdown since 2016. This was the 5th go-ahead Hail Mary touchdown in the final 10 seconds since ESPN has been tracking it back in 2006. Jaden Daniels, the 6th rookie since 1970 with the go-ahead pass touchdown as time expired. 2nd rookie quarterback since 2006 to throw a go-ahead Hail Mary in the 4th quarter or overtime. And the Commanders are the first team to score its only touchdown of the game as time expired since the 2004 Jags versus the Bills. Unbelievable. And I'm sure everyone has seen it by now. Tyreek Stevenson, the cornerback for the Bears, taunting the crowd, talking to fans in the stands as the play was going on. The Commanders receivers got 35, 40 yards down the field before Tyreek Stevenson, the Bears quarterback, realized the ball had been snapped. His back was turned to the play. He had no idea what was going on, and the receivers were almost in the end zone. By the time he turned around and figured it out, he had to beeline across the entire field to get there in time for the ball, and he's the one who tipped it right up into the air into the arms of Noah Brown. So, man, if that's not a way of showing, young sports fans what not to do, wow. Tyreek Stevenson gave you basically just a to-do and what not to do guide. Unbelievable ending in Washington, and the Commanders, they got something special going on with their rookie quarterback, Jaden Daniels. So, from the game of the week into the standings update, Starting off with the AFC East, like we always do. The Buffalo Bills improved to 6-2. They beat the Seattle Seahawks 31-10. Their fourth 20-point win of the season. That is the most in the NFL. And this team looks dominant. Seattle looked terrible in this game. Rainy to start this one up early on, but the Bills powered through 31-10 against what people thought was a decent Seattle team. So they're 6-2. The Miami Dolphins, they lost to the Arizona Cardinals. They are 2-5. They lost on a game-winning kick, 28-27. But the big story of the day was Tua Tagovailoa. He did return. And early on in this game, I don't know if it was the first quarter or the second quarter, but he ran for a first down, and he slid before he had to take any contact, and Hard Rock Stadium erupted. The fans loved it. I mean, it was great to see Tua back out there, but man, he really does need to look out for his health. And one thing I thought was weird, all these people on like ESPN and all these sports networks saying Tua shouldn't come back because he's not going to be any good. If he recovers, like a concussion goes away. Sure, there's a chance that he gets another one and there could be potential for worse things to happen down the road, which I'm not saying is good and he should just throw that under the rug. But I don't think it really would affect his play so much. I feel like that was a big conversation. Like Tua's not going to be able to play well. Like why would we have him go out here? He's going to be injured and he's not going to be good. Tua looked pretty damn good. He was very accurate. Like Tua's basically his main trait is accuracy, getting the ball out on time, hitting those tight windows. Tua looked like Tua in that game, and it was a good sign for the Dolphins. First time their offense was able to move the ball in 5 weeks. The Patriots, they beat the New York Jets, improved to 2-6, 25-22 on a late touchdown and two-point conversion. Drake May did suffer a concussion in the first quarter of this game. Jacoby Brissett led the game-winning drive, and Ramondre Stevenson ran it in. They beat the New York Jets, who fall to 2-6, and now they are under the Patriots, last place in the AFC East. 25-22, another brutal loss for the Jets. Unbelievable, man. It's actually insane. The Jets had 0 turnovers. They held the Pats to 247 yards, and they still lost the game. They are the first team to lose a game in which they did not turn the ball over and held their opponent to under 250 yards since week 3 of the 2012 season. And that game was the infamous game with the Fail Mary between the Seahawks and Aaron Rodgers' Packers, where the Packers lost. So since that game, teams had been 220-0 until this week. So Rodgers had lost the last 2 games under those circumstances. And they also scored over 20 points. So in NFL history, teams that have scored 20 or more points did not turn the ball over and allowed fewer than 250 yards in a game are 750-1, with that one being Sunday, the New York Jets losing to the Patriots. That's just unbelievable. I mean, I'm a Raiders fan. You see all this stuff behind me. I have a pretty tough life, but man, Jets it's gotta be pretty similar. I feel for you guys, and we're probably both never gonna be good, but at least we can be miserable together. 5 straight losses for the Jets. That ties Aaron Rodgers' career high, and man, they are in a bad spot. Over to the NFC East, the Washington Commanders, 6-2. The Washington Commanders 6-2 for the first time since 2008. Just talked about it, just showed it. Their insane Hail Mary. 1 combined touchdown on their first 25 drives of the game for both teams. 2 touchdowns in the final 25 seconds. Like I said, the first game this century where there were 2 touchdowns, 1 by each team in the final 30 seconds of the game. The Commanders had a 3.6% chance to win prior to the Hail Mary. Jaden Daniels ran 41 yards almost on the touchdown pass. It was unbelievable. That was the first 300-yard passing day for Jaden Daniels' career. 6th rookie since 1970 with a go-ahead passing touchdown as time expired. The second one since 2006 to have that be a Hail Mary. And Jaden Daniels is the second player in team history to have a 300-yard passing game and 50-yard rushing yards in that same game. Joining Joe Theismann, did it back in 1980. Jaden Daniels is 3 for 3 for 174 yards and a touchdown on pass attempts of 50 or more air yards this year. That's pretty impressive. And the Commanders are the first team to score its only touchdown of the game as time expired since the 2004 Jaguars versus the Bills. And like I said, that 6-2 start for the Commanders. First time they've done it in Washington since 2008. But that 2008 season did not go so well after the 6-2 start. They finished 8-8 and missed the playoffs. So second place in this division, the Philadelphia Eagles at 5-2. They beat the Cincinnati Bengals this week, 37-17. Jalen Hurts is the first player in NFL history with multiple games with 1 passing touchdown and 3 rushing touchdowns. That includes the playoffs. He did that actually in Super Bowl 57 versus the Chiefs. And Jalen Hurts now has the second most rushing touchdowns in Eagles history, only behind Steve Van Buren, 69. Hurts has 47, and he passed legendary running back Wilbert Montgomery's 45. The Dallas Cowboys, yet another loss for them, this time on Sunday Night Football to the San Francisco 49ers. They lose 30-24. Dak Prescott became the first Cowboys quarterback with multiple picks in 3 straight games since 1992. Over 30 years ago, Zeke rushed for his 82nd career touchdown with the Cowboys, 3rd most in team history. And they've allowed on Sunday, they allowed 24 straight points after they were leading the Niners 10-3. They got outscored. This season, they've been outscored 61-19 in the 3rd quarter, and they have a losing record entering November for the first time since 2020. The New York Giants, they lost to Pittsburgh on Monday Night Football 26-18. It was a pretty close game. They did have a chance to go down and tie it up late. Daniel Jones did throw a pick. In the 4th quarter, they scored a touchdown, and it snapped a streak of 24 consecutive drives without scoring a touchdown, which was the longest active streak in the NFL at the time. And Malik Nabers became the 3rd player in NFL history with 40 or more receptions in their first 6 games. He joins Puka Nacua, who has the record, and Saquon Barkley. Very impressive that a running back is second on that list. Getting to the AFC North, led by the Pittsburgh Steelers, improving to 6-2 last night on Monday Night Football. They beat the Giants, like I just said, 26-18. 22 consecutive home wins on Monday Night Football for the Steelers. They have not lost since 1991. They have not lost a Monday Night Football game in Pittsburgh since 1991. It's 10 years before I was born. And that's the longest streak in Monday Night Football history, passing the Raiders from the 70s and 80s. That's the 54th win on Monday Night Football history, passing the Niners for the most ever. Under Tomlin, though, on Monday night, they're 21-3. And Russell Wilson went 20 for 28 for 278 yards and a touchdown. Another very efficient day for Russell Wilson. Only 1 incomplete pass in the second half. They have held their opponent to under 20 points in all 6 wins this season. TJ Watt had another great day on the defensive side of the ball. 7 tackles, 2 sacks, one of them being a strip sack that he forced a fumble and recovered it late in the game. Huge time in the ball game for him to come up with that. Of course he does. And Calvin Austin, 2 touchdowns combined in the day, 1 punt return, 73-yard punt return touchdown, which was the first by a Steeler since 2019, and then later a 29-yard receiving touchdown. And he's the 3rd player in the last 20 seasons to have a receiving touchdown and a punt return touchdown on Monday Night Football, joining Devin Hester, the Hall of Fame returner, and Dez Bryant. And before this game, Calvin Austin had 2 career touchdowns, and he has 3 in 24 games entering Monday Night Football. Unbelievable. The Baltimore Ravens losing to the Cleveland Browns this week to fall to 5-3. They lost 29-24, lost another late lead, and they have the most losses after leading in the final 2 minutes of the 4th quarter since the start of 2021, and it's not even close. The Ravens have lost 11 games under those circumstances. The next closest team, the Falcons, Chargers, and Vikings, all tied with 6. So almost double the next closest teams. Unbelievable. Jameis Winston, though, how about him? We'll get to him in a second. The Bengals lay lost as well, losing to the Eagles 37-17, fall to 3-5. And man, bad spot for the Bengals, another disappointing season. It does not look like they're going to be able to do this unless they go on a streak where they win 8 out of 10. And to finish this out, the Browns, they beat Baltimore 29-24. Jameis Winston comes in for his first start in 2 years, and the Browns scored their most points in a game this season. Their previous high was 18. So it was their first time scoring more than 18 points in a game. First time getting to 20. They get to 29, almost 30. They go for 2. Would have been interesting if they just kicked the field goal or kicked the extra point, kept it at 30. And Jameis Winston had the most passing yards by any quarterback in Week 8. 334 passing yards in his first start in 2 years, and a win versus the Baltimore Ravens, and some amazing pregame speeches, postgame interviews. He is just the man. Watching him, he's a walking meme. Jameis Winston is a walking meme, and you need to have a camera on him at all times. NFC North, the Detroit Lions, resounding victory against Tennessee, 52-14. This offense is lethal. The 2-headed monster running back duo between Dave Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, Sonic and Knuckles, just unbelievable. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Khalif Raymond's been great. Sam Laporta and Brock Wright scored this week. I mean, this team's been great. Jared Goff's an MVP candidate. The special teams had an unbelievable game. Mentioned it before. Khalif Raymond, punt return touchdown, was one of the plays of the week. He also had another great return all the way inside the 20-yard line. And they had a big kick return as well. And Jared Goff, like I mentioned this earlier, he didn't even have 100-yard passing. He didn't need to. They scored 52 points. Ridiculous. Packers, they beat Jacksonville on a game-winning field goal, 30-27. They improved to 6-2. Game-winning field goal as time expired for the second consecutive week. Brandon McManus got signed last week, kicked the game-winning field goal in his first game, and now he's done it 2 times in a row. The Minnesota Vikings fall to third place in this division after losing to the Rams 30-20 on Thursday Night Football. Tough loss for Minnesota as they fall to 5-2. And they were down by 8. It was 28-20. Final minute of the game. Had a chance to go the full length of the field to tie it and go for 2 to tie the score. But Sam Darnold was sacked in the end zone, and the defender ripped his face mask. Like, his neck was sideways, blatant face mask call blown by the referees, and there's too many games that are decided by the refs. The refs have too much power. They really do. It's like they just can do whatever they want and impact the game. It's every week now. Justin Jefferson has the most games with 100 receiving yards in a player's first 5 seasons in NFL history. Here is that list. Justin Jefferson just passed Randy Moss with 31. Randy Moss had 30, and Julio Jones had 28. And to round this one out, the Chicago Bears at 4-3, losing to Washington in heartbreaking fashion. Tyreek Stevenson, talked about it before, seen taunting the crowd while on the field during the final play as the Hail Mary was happening. It was such a bad look. He got back on the play after the receivers were 45 yards down the field and ended up tipping it up to Noah Brown. The Bears are 0-3 on the road this season, and all of their 3 losses have come by 6 points or fewer. Heading over to the South, the AFC to start things out, the Houston Texans beat the Colts, sweep them on the season, beat them 23-20. The offensive line is struggling. CJ Stroud has no time to throw. Nico Collins really has been a huge loss for this team. They look like a different team without him. Speaking of the Colts, they lose to go to 4-4. And their new, supposedly starting quarterback, Anthony Richardson, came out of the game on a crucial 3rd down late in the 3rd quarter because he was tired. He scrambled a lot in the last 2 plays, but he left the field on a 3rd and goal. One of the biggest plays of the game. They're down by 10 late in the 3rd quarter in a divisional game. If they win this game, they're leading the South. And he checks himself out of the game because he's tired. And then after the game, he just admitted to it. He said, yeah, I was tired. I'm not going to lie. I didn't think I could have made it the next play. You can't say that. You cannot say that. As an NFL player, as a quarterback of a team, you're the leader of a franchise. You're supposed to have a whole locker room, organization, fan base looking up to you. You can't do that. Horrible look. It was unbelievable. And the cherry on top, he's been shit. He's been terrible. He's got the lowest completion percentage in the last 20 seasons among qualified QBs. 44.4% completion percentage this year is the lowest in the last 20 years. Lower than Tim Tebow, who had a 46.5 in 2011. Lower than Jamarcus Russell. I'm a Raiders fan. I lived through that time. Jamarcus Russell had a higher completion percentage through this amount of games than Anthony Richardson did at 48.8. And so did J.P. Lozman in 2005. I don't even know who that is. Like, what are we doing, Anthony Richardson? He's ranked 222nd in completion percentage. He's got a 50% completion percentage for his career. Out of 225 quarterbacks who have taken at least 250 dropbacks in the year since 2000. I mean, 222nd out of 225. There's only 3 quarterbacks worse than him. And he's got a worse completion percentage than Tim Tebow and Jamarcus Russell? Man, there's problems going on here in Indianapolis. And he had a 31.3% completion percentage in this game, the lowest by a quarterback since 1990. He was 2 for 15 in the first half. 2 for 15! That's unbelievable. The Jacksonville Jaguars lost to Green Bay 30-27. Trevor Lawrence played a little bit better this game, but they're still bad. Titans 1-6, lost to Detroit 52-14. Mason Rudolph looked okay earlier, but he caught the case of the Will Levis and turned it over. NFC South now, led by the Atlanta Falcons. They beat Tampa Bay 31-26. Kirk had a day. So did Kyle Pitts on National Tight End Day. And here are players to have 750 passing yards and at least 8 touchdowns versus a single opponent in one season in NFL history. Y.A. Tittle did it in 1962 versus Washington. Dan Marino did it in 1988 versus the Jets. Joe Montana did it versus Atlanta in 1990. And Kirk Cousins versus Tampa Bay in 2024. Now, Wyatt Tittle, Joe Montana, and Kirk Cousins all went 2-0 against those teams in that season. Dan Marino, on the other hand, 0-2 versus the Jets. So, man, that Dolphins team really didn't give him any help. No wonder they didn't win the Super Bowl. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers lost to Atlanta. Injuries were too much for this team to overcome. Godwin and Mike Evans is a huge loss for this offense. The Saints fall to 2-6 as well, losing to Chargers 26-8. This is not a good team. And the Carolina, they lost to Denver to fall to 1-7. And they have not looked good in any game this season except for the one where they absolutely ran right through the Raiders. So I'm going to be honest here. I think the worst teams in the NFL are the Panthers, the Raiders, and the Browns. Maybe you put the Titans ahead of the Browns just because the Browns just won this week, but those teams are horrible. And the Raiders are never going to be good again. Out west to finish things out, the Kansas City Chiefs, who just beat my Raiders 27-20, improved to 7-0. We're never going to beat Mahomes and Kelsey ever again. Kelsey caught his first touchdown of the season on National Tight End Day. Kelsey now has the most catches ever of anyone versus the Raiders. And Mahomes threw his first 2 touchdown passes of October against us. Of course, we get him right. And Mahomes becomes the fastest player in NFL history at 30,000 passing yards. Fewest games, 103. That passes Matthew Stafford's mark at 108. And that is ahead of Kurt Warner and Dan Marino's 114 games. And the Chiefs also tied a franchise record for most consecutive wins, I believe 13 in a row. Denver, 5-3. They improved there to 5-3 after beating Carolina 28-14. 5-3 is their best start since 2016. 2016 was also their last winning season. And Bo Nix starting to find it in the month of October. And here are his ranks versus the rookie quarterbacks in the month of October. 7 pass touchdowns is first. 7 touchdowns to 1 interception ratio is first. 870 passing yards first. 2 rushing touchdowns first, and 3 wins tied for first. So he's been pretty good. The Los Angeles Chargers, 4-3, beating New Orleans 26-8. Justin Herbert went 20 for 32, 279 yards, 2 touchdowns. 5 consecutive games without a pick for Justin Herbert, the longest active streak in the NFL. And the Raiders will fall down to 2-6, losing to Kansas City 27-20. They're such a bad team, but they need to lose. Like it happened to us last year. I've never really been a fan of rooting for losses, especially when the Raiders are my team, because you don't have to root for losses. They just come anyway. It's just a tough look for me to root for losses. But last year, we get the 13th pick in the draft, right? Because we won a couple garbage games at the end of the year. I think we won 5 out of 6 or 4 out of 5 with Antonio Pierce. So we go 13th pick in the draft. There were 6 quarterbacks who were thinking to be picked in the first round. They end up going within the first 12 picks. Half of the first 12 picks. 6 of the first 12 picks in the draft, quarterbacks. And we get screwed out of one. So we're here stuck with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell looking like a bunch of bozos. So this year, we cannot have those wins. We need to lose out, get a top 5 pick, draft Shadur Sanders or Cam Ward. That's bottom line. NFC West, to wrap things up, 3 of the 4 teams in the NFC West are 4-4, led by the Arizona Cardinals based off of tiebreakers. They beat Miami 28-27. 2 weeks in a row with a game-winning field goal for Chad Ryland, and he has 3 on the season. Pretty good year for the kicker for Arizona, who actually was the worst kicker in the league last year for New England. And Marvin Harrison Jr. had a day, 11 catches, over 100 yards, and a touchdown. The San Francisco 49ers beat up on the Dallas Cowboys 30-24, did almost blow the game late. George Kittle went off on National Tight Ends Day, 6 receptions for 128 yards and a touchdown. He's tied for the most games with 125 receiving yards and a touchdown by tight end since 2017. Kittle and Kelsey both have 8, followed by Hawkinson, Andrews, and Darren Waller, who's now out of the NFL, at 3. And George Kittle now in the top 5 all-time for receptions in 49ers history. Obviously, that group is led by Jerry Rice, who's got over 1,200, 600, 700 more than the next closest guy. T.O. has 592, Roger Craig 508. Dwight Clark, 506, and then George Kittle, 500. Tebow Samuel had a good day, 4 receptions for 71, 15 rushing yards, but then left the game with an injury. Seahawks also 4-4, but they look terrible over these last couple weeks, losing to Buffalo, 31-10. Who are these Seahawks? I don't really know. Offense has been sputtering, defense not very good after a 3-0 start. And to wrap things up, the only team in this division not 4-4, the Rams, 3-4. They're on a 2-game winning streak, beat Minnesota 30-20 on Thursday Night Football. Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua are back. They combined for 12 receptions, 157 yards and a touchdown. Cooper Kupp caught his 53rd receiving touchdown of his career, tying Elroy Hirsch for the third most in Rams history. And Kyren Williams scored another touchdown, 10 straight games with a TD for him, the longest streak by a Rams player since 2017-18 Todd Gurley. And Sean McVay picked up win number 80 as the Rams head coach, the most in Rams history. So that's going to do it for this week. Action-packed week of NFL. Got a 3-0 lead in the World Series right now. Yesterday was a sports equinox, just the 31st all-time day where the NBA, NFL, NHL, and MLB all play on the same day. So heading into this last week, potentially last day of the World Series, got to cherish these sports weeks as we have them. So hopefully you enjoyed this one. We'll be back after the World Series for a baseball recap, end the season for that, and then weekly back with the football every Tuesday. So hopefully you enjoyed this one. Come back for the next one. I'm Frank Rampin. This is the Valentine Sports Show. Peace out.